Hi, everyone, and welcome to Round the Horn. Tonight's guest is a fellow member of the New York Pro Scouts Association and a well-known and well-respected radio broadcaster, our friend, Mr. Ed Randall. Hello, Ed. How are you?
Doing fine, Lee. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's great to see you. Great to see you. Well, let's tell people, all of our viewers, a little bit about your background first.
It all began at a small 5,000 watt station, sound like Ted Baxter on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And in saying that, probably, I'm sure I'm dating myself because I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm a son of the Bronx and had a wonderful experience going to an all-boys Catholic school just 3 blocks from Yankee Stadium, actually.
No kidding.
And then from there on to Fordham University. I discovered baseball when I was 9 years old. My parents enrolled me in Little League, and Lee, they played me in right field that year. I was with the Bears in the early '60s, and they played me in right field because it was against the rules to play me in Sweden. I didn't know what I was doing. On the rare occasion when there'd be a fly ball to right field, I'd be jumping up and down because it disturbed my counting the dandelions, and I'd be jumping up and down, invoking the deity. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! And then the ball would plop somewhere, and then I didn't know what to do with it. So back in the days when the Earth's crust was still cooling, they would enroll you by sending you a postcard. And after that first season with the Bears, I didn't get one, which means that I was one of the first free agents. I was playing out my option, and I didn't even know I was playing out my option.
You're released.
I guess. In that year that I was away from Little League, that's when it kicked in. And I taught myself how to pitch. And I came back the following year and then made the all-star team, and then all wonderful things happened to me in baseball, and it's been a love story that continues to this day.
Oh, that's great. Anyway, let's talk about how you got started in the business. I'm assuming at FUV.
Yes, after I came out of All Hallows and went on to Fordham. It just so happened that the orientation leader, when I showed up the first day, happened to be the news director of WFUV, the campus radio station. Now, for those who don't know of WFUV, allow me to tell you that this is not your typical college radio station. This is 50,000 watts on FM. Manhattan College, for example, would have a radio station that they called that was carried on what's called carrier current. It was only heard on the campus. At WFUV with 50,000 watts, depending on the atmospheric conditions, it could be heard at night in Washington, D.C. So after orientation was over, and I need to add, I always had this affinity for radio. I always had a transistor radio. I have to explain what a transistor radio is.
Likewise.
I always had a transistor radio with me all the time. I had it tucked under my pillow late at night when the Mets or Yankees were playing on the West Coast. I would listen to distant radio stations. I would try to pick up other broadcasters in the Bronx. So I would pick up on WTOP at the top of the dial at 1500. I'd pick up Dan Daniel doing the Washington Senators. I'd pick up the great Chuck Thompson and Bill O'Donnell doing the Baltimore Orioles and WBAL. I was just nuts for radio. So I'm at Fordham at orientation, and this wonderful guy with whom I am still friends with, named Sean Driscoll, was the orientation leader and the news director of the radio station. And I walked up to him and said, "How do you join the radio station?" And he pretty much said what Woody Allen once said, 90% of life is just showing up.
Yes.
And so I did. What I later found out was that there were other people who came to Fordham expressly to work at WFUV. I wasn't one of those people, but it was a wonderful place to get started. To be terrible on the air, to make mistakes, and I did everything there. there were occasions when I disc jockeyed. I have to explain what that is.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I also hosted a general interest talk show my senior year. I did play-by-play for the various sports. I was terrible in football. I was terrible in basketball, but I was always doing baseball play-by-play. I was doing baseball play-by-play, waiting for the D train for the subway to Mrowicki Hollows. I was doing play-by-play while I was playing center field. I was always doing play-by-play. And at Fordham, at WFUV, a lot of the other students were dying to do basketball because that was the major sport at Fordham. And I was the knucklehead that, like, I want to do baseball. So in March, one of the years, I'm standing behind home plate, and I know, Lee, you've been to the Rose Hill campus and to Jack Coffey Field a million times.
Yeah.
I'm standing behind home plate, and we're playing Lafayette, and I'll never forget, and a pitcher named Jim Vanderbeek was pitching for Lafayette, and I think the game went 12 innings, and he pitched 12 innings. This is when men were men and pitchers were pitchers.
That's right,
And I'm standing there, and it's sun's out, and it's nice and clear, and it's about 37 degrees.
Yes.
And I'm standing there. There's no press box. There's no nothing. And I'm holding the mic like this. Vanderbeek checks the sign and goes into the windup. And here's the 2-2 pitch. It's low and away, and it's 3-2. And I'm not trying to emphasize anything. I'm freezing.
That's right. It's like that at Monmouth College, too.
Okay, but that was it was a wonderful experience, and it was from that experience, standing behind home plate, that Gil McDougall, may God rest his soul, the legendary Yankee infielder, the first player ever to be named to the All-Star team at 3 different positions.
And I was recruited by him.
Were you really?
Yes, absolutely.
What a wonderful man. And as you know, an incredible family with adopting so many children. Just the best, a saint. He had a very influential effect on my career, hearing me freezing to death and doing the play-by-play later on. But that was how I got started.
That's great. Was Pete Fornatal there at the time?
Yeah, Pete was there. Yes, he was. Yeah.
How about Jim Monahan? I think he was.
And Monahan was there, and we've had so many people, as you know, come out of Fordham University Radio
exactly.
about wonderful careers.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you get into the actual play-by-play after college?
Well, and that takes us back to McDougall. I'm doing the play-by-play, and we didn't even have dugouts. I mean, they had benches. And I guess McDougall would hear me doing the play-by-play. And he says, and I should add this, my high school didn't have a baseball team. So I played summer ball, and then I played JV ball at Fordham for a year until my elbow was barking to the point where I couldn't throw. My sophomore year, we're still in the gym. It's freezing. It's February, and I'm trying to make the varsity, and I can't throw. My elbow's killing me. Because I was the guy at 12 years old, I could start a curveball behind a right-handed batter and get a strike. I mean, I never had. I was a skinny kid. I didn't have a great fastball, but that curve was my ticket, and I paid for that later on with my elbow. Mm-hmm. So we're in the gym, and I go up to McDougall. I don't want to experience the humiliation of getting cut. So I said, this is not going to get any better. I can't do this. We had a team doctor at Fordham. I won't mention his name. This was the kind of care we got then. This was during my freshman year when I was on the JV. And I went in to see him, and he goes, does it hurt when you throw? And I said, yes. He goes, don't throw. And
Rodney Dangerfield.
Really, it was just ridiculous. So McDougall apparently became a fan of my play-by-play. And he says to me, I'm taking the varsity down to train with the Montreal Expos farm clubs. I needed tape. I did get a tape. How am I going to do this? So I went to Shea Stadium, paid my way in, and I went to the upper deck, which is where I always went for $1.30.
Yes, right.
And I'm sitting right behind home plate. And it's the San Francisco Giants and the Mets, and my man Juan Marichal's pitching for the Giants, who I adored. And later came to know him. We become friends, and we share a birthday together. How cool is that?
Wow.
And also Mickey Mantle. So I'm right behind home plate, and I've got my little tape recorder, my first ever tape recorder, which I still have somewhere in storage. And I do play-by-play into the tape recorder. And I'm right behind home plate. I'm 100-something feet in the air, but I'm right behind home plate. I didn't know that, like, you could write to the Mets and get a press pass.
Sure. Yeah, right.
I had no idea. I went and I did my little play-by-play. I gave that tape to McDougal, and I forgot about it. So I get out of Fordham. Just before I get out of Fordham, I'm working 2 internships. I'm working at WNEW Radio, which had one of the greatest local radio news departments in the city of New York, WNEW Radio. I was also working at WGCH Radio in Greenwich, Connecticut, interning, both places. And the sports director at WGCH, wonderful man named Jim Senich, told me about a job for a morning news anchorman in Westerly, Rhode Island.
Okay.
So I go up to interview and I get the job. Going to pay me $130 a week. And so that was, how lucky was I? I had a job before the actual graduation ceremony. So
me too.
Okay, so I go up to 2 days after graduate. Graduated on a Saturday. On Sunday, I pack up my Plymouth Duster. Thank you. Metallic blue, and I drive up 230 miles. I drive up to Westerly, Rhode Island, and I start work as a morning news anchorman. I'm up at 4 a.m. I'm going to be on the air at 6. And I find an apartment like almost immediately. And the conditions at WERI were horrendous. And maybe that's why the job was open.
Yeah, right.
So I find an apartment, and then I go to the supermarket. And I get a cart, and I'm putting stuff into the cart, and then like about 10 minutes later, I'm taking everything out of the cart in the places where I placed where they were properly stacked, and I went back to the apartment and I grabbed my black garbage bag with all my stuff and I drove back to New York. And I told them, I said, I can't do this. To this day, that is the only job I've ever quit.
Oh, really? Wow.
So this is all God's plan. Now here comes the fun part. I'm home. They call me up. They ask me, do you want to go? No, I can't do this. I can't. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't do this. A day or two later, I'm taking a shower about 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Crazy. And I've just stepped out of the shower and the phone rings. Now, this was one of my life-changing phone calls. The phone rings. I pick it up. Hi, hi. Is this Ed Randall? Yeah, this is Ed. Yeah, hi. Hi, I'm Art Eisenberg. I'm the assistant general manager of the Elmira Red Sox of the New York Penn League. Hi, Art. Nice to meet you. Well, you know, we're looking for a play-by-play guy. And we have a list from the National Association, which, for those who don't know, was what the name was of the organization overseeing governing minor league baseball. I got a letter from the National Association, and your name is at the top of the list. And we need a play-by-play guy. Now, this is the middle of June. And I said, wait, Art, I mean, it's the middle of June. Haven't you already been playing? No, it's a short season league. It's the New York Penn League. There's 6 teams. He says, we play 70 games in 71 days. We take a day off for the Major League All-Star game in Kansas City. Okay. man, what is it? What does it pay? You're not going to get paid. What do you mean I'm not going to get? Then you go into a Bob Newhart thing. What do you mean I'm not going to get paid? Well, we're going to find you a job and a place to live. I'm going. Again, I was doing play-by-play waiting for the subway. I was doing play-by-play playing baseball in the Bronx as a kid. I'm there. I'm doing play-by-play. I'm going to Elmira. Back to McDougal. The tape I gave him went to the director of minor league operations for the Montreal Expos named Kevin McHale, John McHale's son.
Sure, yeah, right.
In the Expos. Kevin gave the tape to the National Association. So Elmira, looking for a announcer that will work cheap,
yes,
gets a letter from the National Association with a list. They tell me, I never saw the letter, damn it, but they had 10 names on it, and I was at the top of the list. And Art was going to go down that list until he found a sucker that was going to work for free. So McDougal, with asking me to give him that tape, got me to Elmira, where I started 3 weeks to the day after graduation from Fordham. I'm behind the mic on a Saturday afternoon at beautiful Dunfield as the Elmira Pioneer Red Sox are going to play the Oneonta Yankees. I am so out of my mind, Lee, it might as well have been the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. I mean, I'm doing professional baseball. So I do my games, and about 2 or 3 weeks into the season, we were playing the Mets on a Friday night at the Batavia Trojan Mets. And that's where I met Ned Yost. 40 years now we're friends. Ned Yost was a catcher for the Batavia Trojan Mets. So the game is over. Game went 12 innings. And the owner of our ball club was a multimillionaire. There was a very successful frozen food company called Roman Foods. They made Roman ravioli, Roman pizza, Roman lasagna, all these things.
Oh yeah, I've heard of it.
This was Joe Romano.
Okay.
Also owned a real estate, golf courses, whatever. I'm working for free. So I see Romano after the game, and he's walking with me, puts his arm around me. I said, Joe, I can't do this. I show him my wallet. I'm not going home, but I can't work for free, Joe. I show him my wallet. I'm living off the money I got for graduation at Fordham. And he looks at me and he goes, Skippy, called everybody Skippy. Skippy, I'm going to pay you $3 a game. And that's what I got the entire season. Don't laugh, Lee. I got $6 for double headers. So to supplement my income, one day I walk down Main Street in Elmira to McDonald's. And all our games are at night. And I'm not doing road games. I'm just doing, and I got a million stories about the games. I'm just doing the home games at night. So I got time during the day. I walk into McDonald's and I apply for a job. Now, when you walk into McDonald's with a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science from a leading Jesuit institution like Fordham University, you got a great shot at getting that job.
Right. Yes.
And I did. So they gave me a paper hat that said trainee on the side, took me into the back, and I started dressing your Big Macs. Very generous with the lettuce. And thank God I still have a pay stub from McDonald's.
Oh, no.
So that first summer, I worked at McDonald's during the day. I got $3 a game at night to do the Elmira Red Sox. And I'm working on WEHH radio, AM and FM, except it was a beautiful music station. They don't have those anymore. Middle of the road, as they called it. No DJs. And this guy, Frank Saya, S-A-I-A, owned the radio station. But he did not what's called simulcast. What you heard on AM on WEHH was not what you were hearing on WFM, on WEHH FM. So on occasion, you'd be driving along listening to WEHH, and the record will have ended on one of the on the FM side. So if you're listening to the FM side while Frank is in the AM studio, you hear the record's just going around and around. This is who I was working for. But it was an unforgettable summer. And then that summer, Whitey Ford and Mickey Mantle are going into the Hall of Fame together. And the Boston Red Sox, with their first selection in the 1974 draft, take out of the University of South Carolina a shortstop named Eddie Ford, Whitey's son. They show up, and I said to Eddie, and I have stories about where I was living. It's crazy. Anyway, the final place that I was living in, I had an extra bedroom. And I said, I have an extra bedroom. So that summer, Eddie Ford and I became friends. Okay. And I'm still friends with him and with the family. And to this day, we've never called each other Ed and Ed. It's always been Rooms. Hey, Rooms, how you doing? Hey, Rooms, how you doing? Whitey Ford came up to Elmira to see his son play. He had negotiated the contract with Mr. Kenny, with Ed Kenny, wonderful man, the farm director for the Red Sox. And Whitey sat in with me for a few innings. And somebody, God bless him to this day, took what we used to call a snapshot, a picture. And there's a picture of me and Whitey Ford right next to each other in the booth at Dunn Field.
Wow.
It was just wonderful. And he was so kind to me. So many years later, I'm working for ESPN. And I'm the New York reporter for ESPN. And it's Old Timers Day. And to me, Old Timers Day is like I'm 12 years old.
Sure, yes, absolutely.
So they're all getting dressed before they're going to go out in the old auxiliary clubhouse in the old Yankee Stadium. And I walk in and Whitey sees me and puts his arm around me and takes me around the room. And he introduces me to Mantle, and he introduces me to Maris, and he introduces me to Yogi, and he introduces me to Bauer, and he introduces me to Blanchard, and all these guys. And he goes, this is Eddie Randall. You know, he started out in Elmira with Eddie, and he was making $3 a game. And now he's working for ESPN. Isn't that something? It was unbelievable. And that's how I first met those guys. Now, after the season is over, Boston gets word, A, that I was working for free, and B, that I was getting $3 a game. They find out that the assistant general managers, and there were two, Art Eisenberg, the guy who called me, and Charlie Eschbach, who later became the president of the Eastern League, and later Portland Sea Dogs. Charlie and I started out together that year. Well, they were getting $70 a week. That didn't sit well with the Red Sox. And this Romano guy would tell the kids, game day kids, to go around the ballpark and pick up the empty popcorn boxes that were still clean so they could be reused, and reheat hot dogs for the next game. All this got back to Mr. Kenny. And as you know, Lee, back then, the Red Sox were very image conscious.
Sure, yes.
And so they told Romano, either you sell the ball club or we're going to pull the working agreement and we're not going to supply players. And so Romano wound up selling the team. And then the story goes on from there. I went on to the winter meetings, and I wound up moving all the way to AAA and working in Spokane in the Pacific Coast League. And I was not only 9 months out of Fordham, 23 years old already in AAA.
Amazing. So let's bring everybody up to date. What are you doing these days?
Well, I'm in my 18th season on WFAN on Sunday mornings, hosting Ed Randall's Talking Baseball. #1 in its time slot, which I'm grateful to say. I have been on Sirius Radio for about 11 years. We're on Saturday mornings from 8 to 10 a.m. I'm heard nationally, along with the great Rico Petrocelli. We co-host a baseball nostalgia show. We're two old guys stuck in the past. And we're on Saturday mornings Eastern time, 8 to 10 a.m. And I love doing that show, and I love Rico. So I'm doing that, and I'm doing that. And the rest of my week is devoted to my charity, which I started as a result of surviving cancer.
Let's get to Fans for a Cure.
Called Fans for the Cure.
Let's go over that, how it first started, and what.
Well, it first started by accident. I went to the doctors for a routine physical. I'm only 47 years old at the time, and thought it was going to be routine. And my doctor calls me the next day. My doctor, John Cornwall, had never called And he goes, Ed, your PSA is really high. Now, at this point in time, I've been broadcasting for a number of years. My only definition of PSA was repeated.
Yes. Public service announcement.
Thank you very much. Thank you for filling in the blank. He explains to me that PSA is an indicia for cancer. I'm like, okay, fine. He says, you know what? Maybe the lab screwed up your blood test. Come back, let's take another blood test. We'll send it to another lab, which was the last thing I wanted to hear because I've had a deathly fear of needles since the age of 5. But I thought under the circumstances, boy, I better go back there. So I go back, I take the blood test, they send the results to another lab, and the results of the second test are exactly those of the first. I'm filled with cancer. It was mind-boggling that this had happened. I felt fine. And I found out that prostate cancer in its earliest stages has no symptoms. So through God's grace, I got, being a baseball guy, use a baseball allegory, I got a second at bat at life. So I go into my 2 favorite words in the English language, in remission, right there with Merry Christmas and Happy Birthday. And I come to the realization shortly after I've survived cancer, you know what? There could be tens, hundreds, thousands of guys walking around feeling fine, thinking they were fine, when in fact they were time bombs like me. Because again, prostate cancer in its early stages has no symptoms. And I also came to learn there's an almost 99% cure rate if prostate cancer is detected early. So with that in mind, I founded 501c3 charity, now called Fans for the Cure, dedicated to the mission of spreading the twin gospels of prostate cancer awareness and the life-saving value of early detection. And because of my years in the minor leagues, I spent 7 years in minor league baseball. As we were launching the charity, I said, you know what? That's an unserved constituency. There's 40 million people that go through the turnstiles in the minor leagues.
Right.
And I've come to know so many people in the minor leagues, owner-operators of teams and so on and so forth. I got to do this. So for 13 years, until this year, unfortunately, we established what we call our baseball road trip, where we had, and I'm sure, Lee, you may have seen our tables.
I've been there, yes.
We traveled.
In Trenton, New Jersey.
Right, and we'd pick up local volunteers at each of the stadia, and they would, through their kindness and graciousness, come for a few hours, hand out our materials, and they were all angels. And in 13 years, we were in more than 1,200 ballparks. We were in 121 just last year, and my heart breaks for the tragedy of what has befallen the minor leagues in 2020.
Sure. Ed, I think we're just about out of time, unfortunately. But
boy, I talk too much.
It's great talking to you and catching up, that's for sure. Thank you again for stopping by and spending some time with us. Thank you
much, Lee. And if I could just get this in, we now have a men's support group on Zoom every second Thursday night. If there is anybody in your audience who would like to join us, they don't have to qualify by having had prostate cancer. If they would just like to join us, if they got a prostate issue or whatever, it's fansforthecure.org, fansforthecure.org. We're there 24/7. As I like to say, I have no off switch. Our thanks to special guest, Ed Randall. Ed's on the radio Sundays, 9 to 11 a.m. on WFAN in New York, and on the MLB network on Sirius Radio, Saturdays, 8 to 10 a.m. And make sure you go online to check out fansforthecure.org. Thanks for coming by. We'll see you next week.